The first one is written by St. John of the Cross. He was a Carmelite monk. He lived in Spain in the late 1500s. A rabbit noticed my condition. I was sad one day and went for a walk. I sat in a field. A rabbit noticed my condition and came near. It often does not take more than that to help at times. To just be close to creatures who are so full of knowing, so full of love, that they don't chat. They just gaze with their marvelous understanding. And our second love poem from God this morning was written by Meister Eckhart, who was a Catholic monk and a scholar who lived in the late 1200s. The hope of loving. What keeps us alive? What allows us to endure? I think it is the hope of loving or being loved. I heard a fable once about the sun going on a journey to find its source, and how the moon wept without her lover's warm gaze. We weep when light does not reach our hearts. We wither like fields if someone close does not rain their kindness upon us. And I want to invite you to open your heart and your mind right now to our affirmation for the month of February. Rising up from within me is the holy love that heals all things. Overflowing from the inside out, God's love pours itself into my relationships, finances, and affairs, replacing any unhealed circumstance with perfect balance and ease. God is love, I am love, and so it is. Will you please stand and declare this affirmation with me? Rising up from within me is the holy love that heals all things. Overflowing from the inside out, God's love pours itself into my relationships, finances, and affairs, replacing any unhealed circumstance with perfect balance and ease. God is love, I am love, and so it is. I'm so grateful for spiritual community. You know, when I hear that song, I always think of, who's the author? There's an amazing poem, Sail Forth. Sail for the deep waters only. No more splashing around in the shallows. Sail for the deep waters. You got to go deep with God. You got to go deep with life. You got to go deep with the big questions. You got to go deep with who am I? Because, we can splash around in the shallows and, all right, whatever. But the real meaning is in the deep waters. So sail forth. Sail forth and go deep. Big waves out there, yeah? Big weather out there. Big scary stuff out there. Go anyway. That's what we're here for. And, I want to encourage you to go there in good company. And this is our message. Our theme for today is keep good company. And here's how we got here. We started off the month talking about the idea of living in love. How can we live more fully in the presence and in the power of the infinite love of God? How can we become vehicles for the expression of that kind of love? And the first week we talked about the two commandments, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. Those were the two big commandments that the big teacher Jesus gave us. And we talked about the idea of shoes and socks love, the idea of love God with all your heart and soul and body and mind, and shoes and socks. And I spent the day yesterday with my mother, and I kept thinking about that, because if you weren't here the first Sunday, you don't know. That's how much my mother used to tell me she loves me. I love you with all my heart and soul and body and mind and shoes and socks. And I'm almost 60 years old, you guys, and that is still so in my heart. that my mother loves me with all of her shoes and socks. So beautiful. So we talked about, what does that mean? That means we hold unconditional positive regard for everyone and for ourselves. And that we walk in this sense of love everywhere we go, and that love is the spiritual solution to all of our problems. That's what it means. And we talked about some ways to practice. And if you want to know specifically what those were, get on the website and go back to the first Sunday in February and look at the video, because it's all right there for you. The second Sunday, we talked about practicing love until it's easy to be loving. I said, can I be frank with you? And what I really meant was, can I be genuine with you? Can I be authentic with you? Can I be my real self with you? Can I show up risking being myself with you because I trust that you are going to hold me in that unconditional positive regard, and in return, I'm going to hold you that way. I promise. And when your wounded self shows up, I'm going to love you anyway. And when your happy self shows up, I'm going to love you anyway. And that we're going to be that for each other. And then last week, we actually had a difficult conversation about something in our culture that is broken. There is something broken in our culture, and how that is showing up is violence, yes? And last week we had a really deep conversation about that, and I encourage you to get on the website and check that out if you weren't able to be with us, because we talked about the spiritual fix, the spiritual repair that we need to break out in order to heal this thing that seems to be so deeply broken. In God, all things are possible. And so let's be about becoming the loving presence that can heal our wounded, hurting culture. And now today we're taking another turn and talking about keeping good company. That is, how do we stay focused and committed to loving with all our heart and soul and body and mind and shoes and socks, no kidding, all the time. And the best strategy we can put to work for ourselves is in keeping good company, surrounding ourselves with people who are about that same thing. And here's the good news I have for you. You are doing that spiritual practice right now. You are keeping good company this morning. Good for you. Turn and look at the person next to you. That person is keeping good company with you. You are keeping good company with that person. That is, we are being with people who are interested in practicing being more loving. We are hanging out with people who are on the conscious spiritual path. We are hanging out with people who are committed to working their own stuff so that we can make the world a better place. Is that what you're about? Yes. That's what I'm about. You're in a room full of people who are all about that. And I'm excited about hanging out with you guys. Yay, lucky me! So let's talk for a minute about, why is it important that we keep good company? Besides the fact that our lives turn into a mess when we don't keep good company, let's get a little more specific. The company we keep are our models. Yes? The company we keep are the people that we tend to surround ourselves with, are the people that we tend to agree with, right? And that can be a good thing or a bad thing, because what we can do is surround ourselves with people that we tend to agree with and then close our minds to any other idea, right? What I'm encouraging you to do is surround yourself with people who are generally in agreement that spiritual evolution and awakening is a good thing. And that by itself requires that we keep our minds and our hearts open to a new thought or a new idea. Yes? And so let's surround ourselves with people who are in agreement with us that God is good, all is well, and when I forget, you will stand in agreement with me and help me remember. Okay. Thank you. So you become my model for expanding my mental equivalent about what is possible. Now, mental equivalent is a great word. I love a great phrase. I love it. I'm pretty sure it was Emmett Fox who first coined this phrase called mental equivalent. The law of mental equivalence, he said. And what the law of mental equivalence basically states is that I can only experience out in the world what I can embody in consciousness. I can only have out there what I can have in here. I can only experience in the world what is in my heart and mind. That is, there's an equivalent experience out there to what the experience is in here. Make sense? So when I look at you and I see a way that you are being in your life and it's different from anything I've ever experienced before, suddenly my mental equivalent begins to grow. Here's a great example. About 20 years ago or so, I went to work for a woman who was very wealthy. And she had her office, her company was actually in New York City, but she had kind of this extension office here in Seattle. And in her home, in the basement of her home, was this beautiful, beautiful office. And I worked there. And I went to her home every day. I had never been in a home like that. You know what I'm saying? I went there the first day and knocked on the door. And I drove, and I was like, oh my God, I think I'm not in the right place. This can't be it, right? And she welcomes me in, and I have to tell you, her office, the bathroom to her office downstairs was nicer than my apartment at the time, okay? And I was like, I get to spend 40 hours a week here in this environment. I am keeping good company in terms of stretching my mental equivalent for what is possible. And not only that, she was a woman of integrity. She was a woman of ease. She was a woman of intelligence. And I got to hang with her for almost 4 years in that beautiful office. And by the time I was finished with that job, I had a whole new idea what was possible for me in terms of lifestyle, in terms of career, in terms of business. She served as a model for me. She was good company for me for that period of time in my life. She stretched my mental equivalent for what was possible for me. Here's another example. I love going on vacation and visiting big churches. I like to go into big, successful, alive, awake churches because it stretches my mental equivalent for what is possible for us. I keep good company visiting big, successful, new thought churches that are doing their jobs well. I use them as models. I keep good company with them so that I can get a bigger idea. It tells me where I want to go, which is a great tip. Hang out with people who are a little further along than you are. Sometimes a lot further along than you are. You know, like I said earlier, we tend to hang out with people who agree with us. We tend to hang out with people who are where we are. Make sense? If you want to grow and stretch, hang out with people who are a little further along the spiritual path with you. I hang out, actually, let me put it this way. I remember when I first started going to New Thought Church, and there was a particular leader in that community who completely inspired me. I signed up for every class she taught. I signed up for everything she did. I went on every retreat she facilitated. When I went to church camp with that community, I followed her around like a puppy dog, I swear to you. But you know what? She was a model for what I wanted to be, and she was further along the path. And so I took every opportunity I could get to hang out with her. And now I'm proud to say she's a colleague. Like, I saw a picture of her on Facebook the other day. I was like, oh my God, there she is. You know, and she's a colleague. You know, and I remember when I just thought who she was and what she was unattainable, but I kept that good company with her. I created every opportunity I could to be in her presence and learn and grow and expand my mental equivalent. Is there anyone in your life like that you would benefit from spending some time with? Think of who that might be and figure out how you're going to do it. So this is the first reason that we want to keep good company, because hanging out with these folks can expand our mental equivalent. The second reason we want to do it is, our models mirror back to us two things. They mirror back to us who we are, and they mirror back to us actually I'm going to say this differently. I'm sorry. They model for us. We see in others what we have in ourselves. Does that make sense? And when you're looking out in the world, if you are seeing a lot of cranky, judgmental people, there is something in you that is cranky and judgmental. Does that make sense? because we can't see what we don't have within us. And so keeping good company, they reflect back to us and let us know, what am I inside such that I can see that thing? The second thing they do is they remind us who we really are. And my favorite example, and some of you have actually heard this before because it was such a powerful time in my life. When I was in ministerial school, I had a mentor who was the dean of the school at the time. And he was a brilliant man. He actually passed away about 1.5 years ago, and that's been a big grief for me. He was a brilliant man. And the school kind of had some stuff, like any organization, right? And so I had a lot of complaints about the way things went and the requirements and the way it was organized and this and that and the other thing. And I used to get on the phone and I would call him and I would say, Reverend Nirvana. And I wouldn't be able to remember what I was going to say. I could not show up as negative and judgmental around him. He did not see that in me. So then I hang up and I'm like, oh, damn, I couldn't get that. What was I going to say? Oh, damn it. Now, he got me again. See, in my limited understanding of the time. And then I started making a list so I would get him on the phone and I wouldn't forget what I was going to complain about, right? And so then I'd get him on the phone and I've got my list and I'd say, okay, Reverend Nirvana. Oh, wait, no, that's not a big deal. Never mind. I cross out. Well, no, not this either. I don't really want to say that. And I would just, my whole list would just disintegrate into nothing because he could not see me as negative or judgmental or critical in any way. And I look back now and I realize how perfect all that stuff was that was going on and there was nothing to complain about. Keeping good company with him taught me something about all the limits I had on the way I saw the world. And not only that, I could not show up as my negative, cranky, grumpy self around him. He saw me as something different. I'm so grateful for him and what I learned from him. So our models kind of hold us accountable, if you will, to who we really say we want to be by seeing the highest good in us. And then the third why we should keep good company is so that we can become a model for others. Because as we learn and deepen and grow, we have a responsibility for those who are coming up behind us. We are responsible to them in some way to model and to be good company for them. Here's the key. You might think you're doing that for altruistic reasons, right? Oh, I want to serve. I want to support those who are coming along. You're really doing it because it holds you accountable to your spiritual path. Because you cannot show up as a model for someone else if you are not doing the work yourself. If you try to, it will crash on you and it will be a really bad experience. Trust me, I know. So our job, as we are doing the work, is then to serve as models for those who are coming along and doing the work themselves in order that we be held accountable to our spiritual path. And you see, all of these models, all of these ways of being, all of these ways of thinking about why we need to keep good company are anchored in one idea. These are the people who support us on the path. And even when we are arguing with them or disagreeing or having difficult times, that too is part of the path. Learning to walk in love through the difficult times is part of the path. And so we have to have people, company with us who understand that and are willing to walk with us through that, even the difficult times. And that we can disagree and that we can have conflict and we trust each other enough, we love one another enough that we're able to move beyond that because we know that God is the soul and the source of all things. And so this moment is a perfect moment. We are simply being called to evolve and grow in our ability to have conflict with one another. Only conflict creates change. As long as we're hoody-doing along through life, there's no reason for me to do anything differently. It's when I experience conflict or lack that I suddenly become willing to ask, what is mine to do here? How must I learn and grow? How must I become a bigger person? How must I know God more deeply in order that I can regain a sense of peace and equilibrium in my soul? So praise God for conflict. Hallelujah. So all of these things provide support to us along the path. Our lives are done. Our spiritual evolution is done in relationship. It's easy to be spiritual meditating on my pillow at home. When I'm out here in the world with all y'all, sometimes it's a little bit harder. Just saying. So how do we find good company? Well, like I said earlier, you're keeping good company right here and right now. Yes? I do want to share an important letter that we received this week that is relevant to this topic. This is a letter that, I read this and I thought, gosh, what does this mean for our community? And how might our community respond to this? And I was especially thinking in the what is the word I'm looking for? Context. Thank you. I wanted to say concept. I don't know where that came from. In the context of keeping good company, how do we create a community in which we are keeping good company? And so let me share this letter with you. It says, "Dear friend, this letter is meant to bring you deeper spiritual understanding and happiness. Unlike other chain letters, it will not cost you any money, but it does have the potential to bring great joy to you and your congregation. We have surveyed spiritual communities across North America, and the results indicate that the perfect minister preaches a compelling and meaningful message in exactly 7 minutes. Challenges us to grow, but never upsets anyone. Works from 8 a.m. until midnight and is always well-rested and cheerful. Makes $100 a week, wears good clothes, buys good books, drives a good car, lives in a good home, and gives about $100 a week to the church. Is 28 years old and has preached for 30 years. Has a burning desire to work with teenagers and spends all of her time with senior citizens. Smiles all the time with a straight face, exhibiting a sense of humor that keeps her seriously dedicated to the work of the church. Makes 15 calls daily on congregation, family shut-ins, and the hospitalized, and is always in the office. If your minister does not measure up, simply send this letter to 6 other churches that are tired of their minister too. Then bundle up your minister and send her to the church at the top of the list. Add your church to the bottom of the list, and in 1 week, you will receive 1,643 ministers, and one of them is sure to be perfect. Don't miss this opportunity to support your church. One church broke the chain and got its old minister back in less than 3 weeks. Have faith in this procedure. God will provide. Every blessing. All right. So that's funny, right? And yet, one of the things that makes it funny is the kernel of truth at the center of it, isn't it? We expect our minister to be 28 years old and have 30 years of teaching experience. Yes, we want that. We want the youthful vitality and enthusiasm. We want our minister to be in the office and available all the time, but out doing the work. We want these things from our ministers. And the truth is, that's an old model. It's an old pastoral model for how to run church. Yes? And there was a time when communities were, smaller, when communities were anchored in communities. I mean, how many people drove more than 10 minutes to get here this morning? Right? The church I grew up in, we were all, do you know what I'm saying? We were a community. We all went to the same school. We all went to, it's like, we didn't come from all over. See, how church is done has changed. And so we have to be willing to change with it. And so here at our center, what we're doing is we're looking at solutions for how do we create a community in which we are all ministering to each other. not a community in which I minister to you. I will resign within a few years, you guys. There's a lot of you. And I love you, and I want to support you. And there are a lot of you. And so what we are doing is we are creating a model in which we all become support and good company and ministers to one another, so that I can support you in becoming good ministers to one another. Does that make sense? So right here and right now, you are keeping good company here at Unity of Bellevue. Good job. And so we are creating more and more ways. Our Sunday celebration service, this is where we come together as a big group, but there's a lot of other ways that we can love God, love our neighbor as ourselves, keep good company, create spiritual community, minister to one another in our small groups ministry. Yes? How many of you are in a spirit group this quarter? How's it going?
Great.
I love you guys. I checked in with Kate's group. You guys are terrific. There is energy, there is keeping good company happening there. There are people helping each other along the spiritual path. We have some fellowship groups, the men's group, the Sisters in Spirit, the Women Connect group. All of these things are kind of more mid-sized drop-in groups that are available to you in which you can keep good company. You can take classes. Oh my word, one of the best ways to keep good company is to volunteer with a service team, because you will find some excellent company, people who are on the committed spiritual path, and you have a common task to bond you and bind you to one another. There are opportunities for you to join in membership in our community, and guess what? A little bit later this spring, we're going to launch a prayer partner program. You could have a prayer partner, someone whose job it is to walk hand in hand with you and support you in prayer as you learn and grow and deepen in spirit. How does that sound?
Yes.
Yeah. And I hope you keep good company here. I hope you choose us, because I think we are a powerful, amazing spiritual community, and I'm excited about being here, and I'm excited about growing this community and doing all kinds of things. But you know what? If we're not the fit for you, there are other options. There are other places that you can find to keep good company. There are other spiritual communities. Oh my gosh, meetup.com. You will find something for you on meetup.com, I promise. You'll actually find Unity of Bellevue on meetup.com. I hope that's who you find. But my point is that there are lots of ways and places for you to be in these kinds of relationships with one another that help you along the spiritual path. Are you in for that?
Yes.
To find good company, to be in good company, an important thing to think about is what you are letting in. Because good company isn't just people. Good company is what we're looking at on the TV. Good company is what we are reading. Good company is what we are surrounding ourselves with in our work environment. Good company is our gaming life, for those of us who are into that. The question for you to ask as you are engaging in these activities is this: what I want to be planting in me to expand my mental equivalent for good. Make sense? I think one of the things, last week when we talked about the violence in our culture, I think that's part of our issue. We're keeping company with violence, right? We're normalizing and keeping company with violence. And so I want to ask you, what are you surrounding yourself with? Not just people, but the things that you let in. What movies do you go to? Because those things will expand your mental equivalent for that thing. So be awake. Be aware of what is in your environment. This is what is shaping and creating your consciousness. If you want a consciousness of love, you must shape and create a consciousness of love with experiences that are life-affirming and love-affirming. And then finally, to find good company, you have to be good company. Got that? If you want good company, if you want good company in your life, you have to be good company. You have to be somebody who is on that conscious spiritual path. You have to be somebody who wants to experience a life-affirming a way of being in life, a life-affirming way of being in life. That is not my best sentence ever. But you got it. You got what I mean. That is, to be good company, you must love God and love others with all your heart and soul and body and mind and shoes and socks. You must be that paragon, that beacon of love for others in order to be good company for them. Now, let me ask you this question. Is there anybody who has what you might think of as bad company in your life? Is there someone in your life that is not providing that life-affirming experience of love? I have someone in my life like that, a few actually. And so what do? You kind of have two options. There might be a third one I haven't thought of yet, but right now I'm sitting on, there's kind of two options. One is, you walk away. This is not good company for me. And I have to make the hard decision to leave that behind. Because I am on a conscious spiritual path and I engage in activities and with people who promote love, who are aware that we are on a spiritual journey together and that we must be about loving God and loving our neighbors. And so I'm going to walk away lovingly. Do you hear that? Get out of my life is not loving. Okay? But we find a way, and sometimes we might need to get some support for this. We might need to see a counselor, talk to our prayer partner, come to a class. We may need to get some support for how to do this in a way that is life-affirming and healthy. But sometimes we just have to set the boundary. And it's difficult, and it's heart-wrenching. I mean, I've had that experience, and I know how difficult it is. And yet, it sets us free. It sets us free. So that's option number one. The second option, you got to move back to your strategies. I mean, here's the thing. If you have someone in your life that you love who is not good company, walking away may not be an option for you. Especially, like in my life, like there's someone that I love dearly who is not good company for me. And yet, this person is part of my extended family, and I have to be in relationship with that person if I'm going to be in relationship with my family. Make sense? So, walking away from that relationship is not an option for me. I have to find a way that I can be in relationship with that person in a way that the stuff doesn't get in and I can stay healthy and on the conscious path. And so I go back to my strategies. And what were my strategies? My strategies were be in spiritual community. Do my spiritual practice. Get a prayer partner. Go to my small group. Process it. Oh, you guys, I don't know. I got to go to this thing, and it's hard for me to be, and how am I going to be in that? And how am I going to have the boundary and not let the bad, you know what I mean? But when you have your spiritual community, when you have good company, you have a place to work through that and develop a plan for how you're going to be in that 3-hour experience that you have to have with your family that is driving you out of your mind. Okay, I exaggerate a little bit sometimes. So you got to go back to your strategies. Go to your spiritual community. Go to your other support systems. Process, make a plan. Be aware. How am I called to learn and grow from this situation? How am I called to learn and grow? I have to be in relationship with this person. This is my boss or my coworker. I have no choice. I have to be in relationship with this person. How am I called to learn and grow and be a greater embodiment of love? And if you remember last week, we talked about shoes and socks. Love is love that loves even when we don't feel like it. Even when it's hard. Take a breath with me. Even when it's hard. So get that support so that you can be the loving presence when it's hard. And finally, remember our strategies. Be good company for that person. Because maybe, you never know what might happen. Maybe you are the vehicle for that person's awakening. It could be. So be a model, be good company for healthy boundaries, for loving in the presence of difficult circumstances. Be good company for that person. So how's everybody doing? Are you ready for a little spiritual practice around this? Shall we practice a little bit? How can we be good company for ourselves and for others? How can we love God, love our neighbor as ourselves, shoes and socks love? So what I want to invite you to do is to gently close your eyes and turn within. Bring your attention to your breath. And as you breathe, just anchor in love. Following the breath deep into your heart. For it is here in the heart that we see with the eye of love. And as you breathe, you simply make yourself available to the infinite mind and heart of God. You recognize that there is a flame of love that is burning at the core and the center of your being. And there is a presence that is that infinite source of all love. And this infinite source is available to you all the time. For you are fully at one with it. There is no separation. It is yours. It belongs to you. You belong to it. And so just allow that flame within you, that flame of love, to grow and to expand. And as you do, just begin to imagine in your mind, see yourself in good company. See yourself in company, those who will model for you the goodness of life. See yourself expressing and experiencing the perfect love of the infinite divine. See yourself allowing love to flow into every pore in your body. See yourself as an open vessel for the power and the presence of love. See yourself in this good company, love abounding, spilling up and overflowing everywhere. Your heart is light. Your mind is easy. You are in good company, surrounded with perfect love. And just revel in that for a moment. And allow your mind and your heart to be expanded by this experience of love. And claim this as your new normal. This experience is who you are. And as you just lean into that truth, bring into your awareness now one new way for you to keep good company. What is one thing you will do this week or this day to cultivate the spiritual practice of keeping good company? One new thing you will do. And simply allow the infinite wisdom of God to descend upon you like a mantle and make itself known to you right here and now. And in this experience, simply say yes to that new thing, that new way of being that you are ready to embrace and own and embody. And in your heart of hearts, in the silence of your own mind, simply say a gentle yes to that thing. And now what I invite you to do is to bring to mind you. See yourself in your mind's eye. It could be your face that you see. It could be some other mental, spiritual representation of you. See yourself in your mind's eye, every detail of you. And see yourself with the eye of love. Shoes and socks love for you. And as you gaze into your own eyes with adoring affection, I invite you to sing with us. Sing to yourself. There is only one of us. In your eyes it's me I see. There is only one of us. You are my reflection. There is only one. There is only one of us. In your eyes it's me I see. There is only one of us. You are my reflection. There is only one. There is only one of us. In your eyes it's me I see. There is only one of us. You are my reflection. There is only one. And so know right now that as you look into your own eyes, you look into the eyes of the beloved, that from which you have sprung, that which created you. It is right where you are. You cannot be separate from it. It is the embodiment of love, and so you are the embodiment of love. There is only one. And we surrender to this truth right here and right now. And so I close this message with a grateful heart, calling it good and very good. And so it is. Amen.